And we're back in Studio K with the one and only Marvelous. How are you feeling, Marvelous, after that
I
performance?
feel really, really good. Thanks for asking. How are you feeling?
I'm doing great. After that, I'm giddy. I'm here. I was blown away. Seriously, that was incredible. And what a group that you brought in too. Would you like to introduce? I know you did during your set, but I'll give you another chance now to introduce your bandmates.
Yes. Well, on the bass guitar, I had Henry Breen, who's a really fabulous bassist and producer in the Twin Cities. Has worked with just about everybody that you can think of around here in this community. So I feel very, very lucky to have him. And then on the drums, we have Tarek Abdul Kader, who's like one of the most eclectic, interesting drummers, playing with many different stylings, and like he'll often like bring like the shaker in and be like, but not only shaking the shaker, but like shaking himself while he's playing. So yeah, I love playing with both of these guys very much.
Yeah, totally. And yourself. You want to introduce yourself? As
Yeah,
well?
my name is Marvelous. I'm based here in Minneapolis. I am the founder and co-director of the Cherry Pit, which is a project that I've been working on for the past year and some change here in the cities. And now I'm starting to branch off into doing my own solo projects. I've been performing, within all these Cherry Pit events, but now I'm like, what is it going to look like if I go out into the big world, on my own? And so I'm kind of branching out in that way right now.
That's awesome. Well, I want to get to the Cherry Pit for sure in just a minute. But before we get to that, let's talk about what we just heard from you today. So you were talking about how some of these songs are a part of a bigger project that you're working on, correct? Did you want to talk about that project? Or
Sure, I can touch on that a bit.
Great.
So the first song, which is entitled "The Cloud Named Rabbit," and
Fantastic
then
name, by the way.
thank you.
Yeah.
And the third song is entitled "One by One." Those are both songs from a musical theater project in process at the moment called Esmeralda's Valley, which currently doesn't exist anywhere where you can look it up or find it because it's still very much in notebooks and in my notes app on my phone.
Okay.
Basically, the part of the process I'm in right now is like songwriting, character creation, world building, creating a little magic system for all these characters that are in the stories. And so those are both songs from that project.
Cool. And do you have like a plot that you're working on for that? Are you still just building the world, building the characters? And stuff?
Yeah, I have about the first third of the plot mapped out as of right now.
Okay.
I don't know how much I want to say
Totally.
at the present moment, but it's something that in my ideal world would be seen as a sort of like 10-part animated series, maybe HBO.
Please.
That would be like the dream. But more realistically, I can see it on a stage somewhere in the cities. Perhaps doing like a percentage of the show, like a little chunk of it live. Esmeralda's Valley, yeah.
Cool. Do you have theater experience? Were you a theater kid in high school? Have you done any of that before?
I was a little too paralyzed in high school to do any type of theater. I was just so nervous. I didn't
Really?
want.
That's so surprising, to be honest.
I didn't get up on stage and sing until I was 17 or 18.
Okay.
And that kind of limited me. I don't know. I was going through just about what most, high school kids go through, teenagers go through, just like not wanting to be perceived in a certain way. And like I was in my little practice room hiding and writing my crazy songs and like not talking to a lot of people about them.
Yeah.
But I've eat, sleep, and breathe musical theater. I love Broadway shows. I go to see a bunch of them and like
Cool.
love to listen to that stuff on my own time. Yeah.
What do you think it was that brought you out of your shell in a way and made you feel more confident so that you could perform these songs that you were writing? Or was it not one moment? It was just kind of over time?
Well, I wrote a song in high school called Bake a Cherry Pie Out of You, which is a metaphor for what I feel like the school system was doing to me and my friends.
Wow.
Like baking me into a cherry pie, and then like there was the rest of the metaphor was like getting eaten by the big fat man and then getting like pooped out, Like there's the song kind of like was this journey of like being like there's a part where I was being digested, and there were some different characters in the song, like 4 different characters. And so that was where it naturally came out of me that way, where I was like, okay, I have this story to tell. This is my life experience right now. I'm trapped. I hate being in school. I feel like I'm not able to express myself. And then that song sort of came as a byproduct of that.
Very cool. Wow, that's a great little metaphor for that. I'm a fan. So those 2 other songs that you performed today, "Won't Bring No Social Change," that was one of them, and then "Does It Matter What I Believe?" Those are just more personal project songs.
Yeah, I mean
Okay.
they're still all under Marvelous, the artist name. But they're definitely different. They're definitely coming from more of a heartfelt place or more of a thoughtful place. For me, like rooted in the real world, rooted in like opinions and like the feelings that occur in my chest and in my brain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Okay, very cool. So I've seen you live a couple times, and you know some people put on a show, like they play their music and stuff like that, and they talk a little bit in between. But you put on a show, like you have the set design, and especially at the Cherry Pit, there's a lot that you put into it. Can you tell me a little bit about like your process of planning a performance?
Well, I'd love to have a theme for a show and have a
Yeah,
title for a show, having a color palette, having costumes picked out. The for the upcoming Cherry Pit project, I can't say too much about it, but what I will say is that our emphasis is upon storytelling and stage presence. So we have kind of like a performer's focus. Where like for instance, if there's a horn section, we're not gonna have them just playing their horn lines. We're gonna have them like uh working out what character they are in their head, kind of like Dungeons and Dragons style a little bit, where they're like, "This is who I am, playing this horn line right now,"
I see.
and that'll manifest in maybe some dancing. Maybe like they'll put their horn down and go like tap the drummer on the head. I don't know. It's pretty open ended, but I think about it in terms of like a plot and a theme
I
when I
see.
put together a show.
And these are things that you talk about at rehearsal with those involved.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's so awesome. And I can see that now. Thinking back, yeah, I can see those elements for sure. Cool. I want to. I'm curious about your origins. Before we get to the Cherry Pit, I'm curious about your origins as a musician, as an individual. When did you first kind of start playing music? When were you first introduced to playing music?
There's a video of me playing the ABCs when I was like 3 years old. I'm like punching the piano like, and I'm like, it's like shot on film or something. It's kind of a sweet little capture.
Yeah.
But like beyond that, my dad used to like play Metallica for me. I'd like sit on the living room floor and he would like get in my face and like scream at me like, "Rah, rah, rah." And I thought he was the coolest. Yeah, I thought he was the greatest singer in the world, you know? So that's like my origins. But then when I was 6 or 7, I was going to this community center in my city called the Goodman Community Center. And I had this really fabulous mentor and teacher named Mr. Zach who like pulled out just a bunch of electronic pianos for all the kids
Wow.
and just gave me like a blues scale and a chord progression, and he was like, "Go crazy, like, like do something with this, do something with this." He didn't start me off with like 1 2 3 4 5 1
Right.
3 2 1, and just give me like these like kind of boring little basic building blocks, but like really gave me something to work with. And he was like, "Here, have this. This is yours. This is your first song. Like, make something with this, Leo." And I was like, "Wow."
Starting with the blues scale, I mean, wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I love that. That's a great thing to play around with, and it manifests now, man. You're so bluesy. I mean, yeah. So one thing I want to talk to you about is style in your playing. It seems like you're very intentional about style and dynamics and stuff. What are some I guess piano stylings that you really gravitated towards as you were developing as a musician, and why do you think you gravitated towards those?
Well, my mom I grew up with my mom playing piano around the house, playing stuff like Chopin and playing other classical music. But I really loved the ragtime music, like Scott
Mhm.
Joplin and like
Stride and stuff.
stride
Yeah.
music, yeah. But also like Debussy, you know. And so like my music is kind of like those are like really early things that like worked their way into my ears, and then later on got very into like New Orleans piano stylings, folks like Dr. John and James Carroll Booker.
Cool.
But then other like more like traditional and or modern jazz piano, like I love Ahmad Jamal, Oscar Peterson, Corey Henry, Robert Glasper. I mean, the first piece that I played was kind of a mixture of like
Yeah.
Joe Hisaishi sort of like Miyazaki movie soundtrack into
Fusion-y.
like
It was feeling fusion-y.
but then into kind of like a Glaspery sort of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, so I love piano players so much. I give kind of emotional about it. I really, really like look up to a lot of piano players and like get into that. Yeah.
I hate to do this to you, but would you be able to give your top 3 piano players that you really draw influence from?
James Carroll Booker from New Orleans, very underrated piano player. Chick Corea's up there.
Yes.
Chick Corea's up there for
Yes.
sure. I probably learned more from Chick than a lot of other players. I don't know how much I'm like emulating him at this point, but love Chick. And right now, Corey Henry. Corey Henry just dropped this incredible like solo piano and voiced album.
Mhm.
that I don't know if it's like my all-time list, but this is like my today list. But
Fair.
I love Corey Henry. He does
Yeah.
all these like very funky bass lines and is like really bringing the whole band around just with the grand piano.
Yeah, totally. Have you delved much into the world of like electric piano and like sounds and like sound engineering and that kind of stuff like Corey Henry does? Or are you getting into that?
Yeah, I have a Yamaha keyboard that you can like meld the sounds together.
The Motif
Um,
XF8.
yeah, yeah. Me and Eli have the same keyboard.
It's a great board.
Yeah. Oh, how could I forget that? But I'll just like blend, 2, 3, or 4 sounds together, and you can like mix them and everything. So I have these weird things that are like a soundscape mixed with the organ, mixed with the piano, and mixed with the Rhodes, and so it'll sound like this kind of otherworldly, kind of dystopian thing, and like.
Totally.
And then if you spin the little magic wheel, it'll flip over to the other side of the world, and then it'll be like.
Exactly. That's a great representation of it, I think. Okay, cool. And back to style. I read kind of in your bio that you also gravitate towards some kind of Russian stylings. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah. I would say like Brahms, like Hungarian dances, but then
Yeah.
also like anything that Vladimir Horowitz plays. Like there's a lot of like traditional Russian music that like when taken on by a really skilled piano player, like brings this juicy like rhythm, but it doesn't stick around for a long time. I don't know, like there's a lot of like time shifting. It'll start real slow and then it'll speed up more and more until they're just like going. It's just yeah, man, it's in my blood and it's in my head and it's in my ears. I really love that music a lot.
That's so cool. I love it. Awesome. Okay. Now we can talk about the Cherry Pit. Tell me about you. So you're from Madison, correct?
Yes.
It started in Madison.
Yes.
Okay. And tell me about like the initial motivation to start the Cherry Pit.
Just wanting to jam and like
Okay.
play together with friends. Started really simple without the intention of doing shows or like building beyond that. It was just a bunch of young people that didn't feel like they had a space to express themselves. In high school, would just like come into my basement and like paint their faces and wear strange clothes and make a lot of noise for many hours.
Yeah.
And that's how it stayed for a long time. For a couple of years in Madison, we would do shows here and there and kind of like build the band from whoever was really active in those jam sessions. So it's kind of a rotating thing, kind of like Parliament Funkadelic.
Right.
And upon arriving in Minneapolis last June, things became a lot more like presentation and show oriented, where we always have jams at our events. It's always going to be an opportunity for people to like get together, come up from the audience and play with us, play with other Cherry Pit community members. But now we really put on a show too.
Totally. Yeah. And so you write original music specifically for the shows, right?
Yes. It's in the past it's been a little bit more of folks coming with their own original material, and then we kind of like here and there we'll like write songs together.
Yeah.
Hasn't been as much of an emphasis for season 1, but for season 2 it'll be more of a point. Yeah.
Cool. So can you tell folks who haven't been to a Cherry Pit show or have not heard of it before what they can expect when they go to a Cherry Pit show? Like what is the layout usually like? How does the night go?
Well, you can walk in there. Maybe it'll be about 8:00. You come in with your friends, and there will be lots of blankets and couches and pillows all over the floor. It'll kind of look like a living room, and it will be very comfortable and cozy. And when you come in, you'll see all the instruments set up and some beautiful lighting, and there'll be a DJ playing some music. And then once the show starts, you will see. What will you see? A rotating cast of characters. Like you'll see myself, Marvelous, and my good friend Ada Magdalena, most likely. But otherwise, rotating cast of like musicians, whether it be the feature artists themselves, which change for every show, and the band, which to some degree stays the same, but also shifts. I mean, all in all, there's probably like 40-ish folks that have like rotated through since we've arrived in Minneapolis.
Very cool. And what are your hopes and dreams for Cherry Pit moving forward? What do you want it to turn into? Or are you happy where it's at right now?
I would love to see Cherry Pit have its own space where we can have a recording studio and have a performance space and just like real straightforward like music, like artist collective stuff. Like we just want to have a space where we can like nurture people that we believe in that are maybe a little bit younger or haven't had a experience working with a band before. Just like lift up the voices of like friends of ours that we believe in a lot.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love it. Love it so much. Okay, cool. We're getting close to time. I really want to ask you about your songwriting though, because I'm a huge fan of your songwriting, and obviously from what we heard today, you have a very like no song is the same for you. So, what is your songwriting process like, on average? Would you say? Like, does the song come to you? Do you go to the song? Like, do you sit down and say, "I'm going to write a song," or are you just like doing something random and then the melody pops in your head?
Well, that last piece, Doesn't Matter What I Believe, was very much like just walking around the neighborhood feeling my feelings type of music.
Okay.
Where I would just like, I was kind of humming this, like, doesn't matter what I believe, just kind of like snapping my finger,
Yeah.
and like, and existed like in a very bare bones place. And I kind of like lifted it up from there and actually combined it with just a guitar part that already existed in my life that
Oh,
like,
cool.
I really wanted to give that guitar part some life, but I didn't know what, where it could exist, and sort of just like mush those two things together, and it ended up being a great success. But some of these other songs, I usually like use rhythm as my my guiding principle for writing songs. Like if I can like groove to something, then I can pretty easily come up with a melody for it. So it needs to like be a bop first,
Okay.
and then I can
For sure.
and then I can create a melody.
Cool. And do you have like a creative haven or like a place that you really do feel inspired to write in specifically?
I had a 1998 Toyota Sienna for until someone crashed into me on the highway. And that was it for me, man.
In the
I was
car?
like, I was in
Wow.
that car all the time, like just, you know, making weird noises and like freestyling and singing and like doing all type of strange things. And like that's where I did most of my ideating, was in that car, like percentage wise. But now I got a Toyota RAV4, and I'm like, okay, like this is
It's all
fine.
right.
It's
Dude.
it's objectively a nicer car, but then when I tell people I'm like, I want my Sienna back, they're like, what is wrong with you?
It's
But
about the character. Of
it's
the
about
car.
the character, yeah.
Yeah, totally. Okay, great. So tell me about any Marvelous related things coming up. Is there anything on the horizon that you want to alert people of? If not, that's totally cool.
Recently took a trip to Carpet Booth Studios in Rochester with my good friends Ada, Magdalena, and Zina, along with Henry and Tarek and my friend Ivan on the saxophone. And we recorded some music there. So we're in the process of digging through that. And so you'll see a release from me some point in the future. It's hard to say, really hard to say.
That's great.
And beyond that, there's a Cherry Pit event happening in November. Can't say much more than that, but Cherry Pit's coming back.
That excites me personally. Awesome. Fantastic. Wonderful to hear. Last question for you. This is one I ask to all the artists that come in. I want you to build a dream bill for yourself. You get to be on it. You get 3 other performers. It doesn't necessarily need to be like your favorite artists, but ones that you would like to share the stage with. And then you could also give me a venue if you want to.
Well, okay, this isn't a venue. Well, there's that new place called the Sphere in Las Vegas that just popped up.
Yeah.
That's like a whole globe.
I feel like everyone's gonna say that now. That
I'm just fascinated. It took like $2.3 billion to build it. I was like, oh my god. I don't know.
Even from the outside is incredible too. So yeah.
But like Dream Bill, the first 2 artists that pop into my head. Well, 3 artists pop into my head. Kamasi Washington, love his band so much. Moses Sumney, who I'm actually going to see tomorrow in Canada.
Oh wow. Cool.
And Gabby Moreno, who's a singer-songwriter, really incredible musician. Yeah, those are the 3 that pop in my brain at the moment.
At the Las Vegas Bowl or whatever it's called. What is it called?
Exactly.
Maybe you can host a Cherry Pit there at some point.
Oh yeah, totally.
Put a bunch of pillows on the ground and stuff. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Leo. Marvelous. It's been a pleasure to have you in today.
Thanks, Eli. I appreciate it a lot.
This is Radio K, Real College Radio.